What is up, guys? Welcome back to CageChat MMA. We are here for, of course, the PFL 4 preview. We are back. We've got the second phase of the regular season before we go on to the playoffs, which kick off in August. And tonight's card is a pretty phenomenal card, especially if you're from the UK. We've got Brendan Loughnane, the only man to get a finish on PFL 1 in the featherweight division and lightweight division. The only man to get a finish on that night against Shayman Moraes. A fantastic performance for him after what was a turbulent 2020, and that goes across to all PFL fighters as well, apart from Kayla Harrison. Well, I say apart from Kayla Harrison because she fought on other organisations. But, you know, as a whole, PFL 2020 didn't happen, but we're here in 2021, and we've got, again, as I mentioned, a buzzing card for tonight. Obviously, the big talking point is Claressa Shields making an MMA debut against Brittany Elkins. Obviously, the former Olympian, two-time Olympian that is, 3-weight world champion and 2-weight undisputed champion. She's done or 3-weight world champion, should I say, and 2-weight undisputed champion. She is the greatest woman of all time. In terms of boxing, she's coming over to MMA and testing out her skill sets over the other side of combat sports. Now, obviously, we've had in recent times, we've had a lot of times of MMA going over to boxing. You know, Conor McGregor went over to Floyd. We had Ben Askren. We've got Tyron Woodley going over to boxing as well, if you'd call it that. Well, it is boxing, but obviously against Jake Paul. So maybe there's a spanner in the works. You could say a question mark on the legitimacy of it, if you're that way inclined. But I do think they are legitimate bouts, and Claressa Shields is definitely a legitimate bout tonight up against Brittany Elkins, who obviously has fought Kayla Harrison, the lightweight champion from 2019 in the past as well. She debuted Kayla Harrison, if I'm right in thinking that, back in PFL in 2018, and there's been a lot of question as to why, you know, Claressa Shields has come in and had, there's a lot of talks about a hand-picked opponent, but, you know, she's 0-0. She's coming into her debut. She deserves to get her feet, into MMA first. She's at one of the greatest gyms, one of the best gyms. Of course, you've got the likes of John Jones, Holly Holm, and Michelle Waterson to train with. You know, John Jones, the greatest of all time, consensus greatest of all time, the lightweight champion up until he vacated the belt, looking to move up to heavyweight. And we've got Holly Holm, who's been in Claressa Shields' feet, you could say. Obviously, she was kickboxing over to boxing and then into MMA, and obviously she had probably one of the greatest moments in the women's MMA when she beat Ronda Rousey, who has a similar, had a similar skill set to Kayla Harrison. I think Kayla Harrison's, further along it, but, maybe that's the path we're on. Obviously, we've got Claressa Shields in this. I believe she's fighting twice this year. Of course, she's not in the league as Kayla Harrison is, so obviously we're not going to be seeing that fight go ahead unless something drastic happens where Kayla Harrison doesn't make the playoffs, you could say. And obviously Kayla Harrison is in her last year of the contract with PFL and probably going to be most likely heading over to the UFC to compete at the 145-pound division and give Amanda Nunes a fight as well. As if the featherweight division still exists at that point, or has to be reopened, you could say, or restarted with Kayla Harrison. So there's a couple of question marks. Obviously, Claressa Shields, there was talk about her fighting Amanda Nunes in MMA and boxing, having a crossover bout, and I'm glad we got to this point rather than that point, just because I do think Claressa Shields deserves time to embed herself into the sport, rather than, going in there against the greatest female fighter of all time in terms of MMA. It would have been a great marketing campaign. It would have been a great spectacle, but I don't think it would have been a fair contest either side, from Nunes going into boxing or for Claressa going into MMA. But yes, I believe she's had 12 to 18 months. I think it was this time last year when she announced she was making the move over to MMA. So she's had a great time. She's been okay. She looked decent on the patch. Now, of course, in PFL there's no elbows, but obviously there's the remainder of the mixed martial arts rules. So it'd be interesting. Obviously, we know she could have an advantage primarily in terms of the striking with her boxing. But it's what happens when she does come up to someone who, has a legitimate grappling, who can take a fight to the ground, who does have submissions. But, working with the likes of Holly Holm and John Jones, she's gonna have picked up the skills, and she looks like a very studious fighter, someone who studies the game, and she looks like she's someone who's always willing to learn. There's a lot of confidence coming from her, which I think people are picking up on as a way to nitpicking her and give her a harder time. But with that confidence comes a a humility and a humbleness from her, and you can see that in the way that she's dealt with this move into MMA. She hasn't gone straight to the top. She hasn't been calling out MMA champions. She's coming at ground level and grinded and worked. And obviously she does come with a name which I guess balances it. Well, it doesn't balance it out, but coming with a bigger name, there's almost bigger expectations and bigger hopes for someone to step in at a higher level. But it doesn't work like that. You've got to get your feet into the ground before you start chasing the Cyborgs, the Nunez's of this world, you could say. She does main event tonight, of course, against Brittany Elkin, who is 3-6, so it's going to be interesting to see how it does play ahead tonight. Now, the co-main event is Clay Collard versus Joliton Lutterbach. Obviously, Anthony Pettis was supposed to be the co-main until he withdrew yesterday because, to be honest, he will fight now on PFL 6. Of course, he needs to fight because he did lose his last bout to Clay Collard as they went the distance, of course. And Pettis will now be on PFL 6, as will Lance Palmer, Modlith Kabuliev, pardon me if I butcher that name, and of course Anthony Pettis will fight Raush Manthiel in the co-main event of PFL 6. So a couple bouts moving, changing hands, but tonight's card again, it's a great card that we've got for PFL 4-6 between featherweights and lightweights. So yes, let's have a quick look at the standings. Of course, we've got Brendan Loughnane at the top of the featherweight division, the only man to get a finish in the first round and a finish overall in the first PFL card. And in the featherweight division, of course, we've got Bubba Jenkins, Modlid K. Bulayev and Tyler Diamond, and also Chris Wade on 3 points as well, rounding out joint second, but obviously only the top 4 progressed this year into the playoffs. So, but Tyler Diamond is fighting Brendan Loughnane, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. Of course, can be backing Brendan to get the win and hopefully finish out the division on maximum points with 12, of course, with a first round finish tonight. Bubba Jenkins does face Bobby Moffett, who obviously is in 9th, is going to be wanted to get a finish tonight. And this is where the PFL becomes a bit interesting, because obviously it is somewhat of a league. It's almost like more of a knockout competition, more like a Champions League rather than a Premier League or an FA Cup, where you've almost got one, maybe 2 shots, depending on the results of your fight, of course. With the round breakdown, 6 points for a first round finish, 5 for a second, 4 for a third round finish, and of course 3 points for a win, and I believe it's 1 point for a draw, or 2 points for a draw. 2 points might be for a split decision actually, and 1 point for a draw. And Lance Palmer, the champion in 2019, is on 0 points. Obviously, he's now fighting at PFL 6. He could theoretically be out tonight should everyone, let's say Shimon Moraes, let's say Ospinov, Moffat's, if the top 4's rounding out, he could be out by PFL 6. But yes, it could make things exciting if he needs those 6 points to get through, you could say. So it is an interesting, concept. Obviously, Shimon Moraes is coming off that loss to Brendan Loughnane. He's up against Jess Stern, of course, who's down at the bottom. We've got Chris Wade versus Ospinov, of course. So Chris Wade, if he gets a win tonight, will probably more than likely book his spot in that top 4. And it's up to Kubilev, who's actually fighting, of course, on PFL 6. So it's going to be interesting to see how tonight builds up that final regular season for the remaining featherweights on the card who are yet to fight. But yes, talking about Brendan Loughnane, of course, he did get that first round finish, a beautiful performance after, as we mentioned at the top of the show, a turbulent 2020. But I think looking back, it could have been a very positive thing they didn't fight in 2020. Obviously, on the negative side, he lost a year of his career, but he was able to grind out. Obviously, we had the lockdowns and etc. But he was out in Dubai grinding. He spent, I think, 8-9 months in Dubai at TK MMA, just actually grinding his craft. And he's looking to come out a much better version of himself. He looks like an absolute killer, and he's putting that to the test tonight. It's a shame that he's opening the card. I say a shame, obviously, that benefits the UK guys, but he's fighting at 3 o'clock in the morning anyway. I do believe he should have been a little bit higher up in the card, being the only man fighting tonight that currently has a finish. But yes, obviously, Claressa Shields brings the name, and you expect her to main event. Clay Collard, of course, does have a huge name and a fantastic performance probably does regard him, and I'm probably being a bit biased hoping Brendan Loughnane was higher up the card. But it's good to see him on the main card. Of course, if you saw his social media, he's on a fight poster for the first time in his career, I believe, which is fantastic for British MMA. Obviously, we look at the UFC and Bellator a lot. We look at Fabian Edwards, Leon Edwards, we fight Nate Diaz this weekend, obviously Darren Till, Darren Stewart, etc. But Brendan Loughnane is crafting a path of his own with the PFL, and tonight could book himself a top seed playoff for August, and of course fight on New Year's Eve for that title and that $1 million prize. And I think he's in the driving seat to do so. But yes, let's see him up against Tyler Diamond, who had a gritty performance in his last one. He, of course, is on 3 points as well, and he's got everything to fight for also. Obviously, the remainder of this card, we've got Nathan Shorte against Alex Martinez, we've got Martin Held against Olivier Aubin-Mercier. And let's have a look at the lightweight rankings. Of course, we've got Clay Collard at the top, Aliyev, Martinez, Martin Held, and Mantheo, all on 3 points. A couple of fighting on PFL 6 with Mantheo, of course. And Nathan Short is fighting tonight. He's closing out the card against Alex Martinez, who's on 3 points. Obviously, Short did lose in the opening PFL 1 card, so it's interesting to see that both the champions from 2019 need a win, and an impressive win, to probably most likely put their place in the playoffs in August, which do happen right at the start of August, so it's only 2 months away. So I think tonight a lot of the game plans, a lot of people are get in, get the win and get out as quick as you can and take maximum points home with you. Let's not get into the wars where you could be out for a month and a half. You need to take a short notice fight, or worst comes to worst, you miss out on that playoff spot that you worked the best part of 18 months already. But yes, as you see, Aubin-Mercier, of course, signed for this season from the UFC. Of course, he's on -1, so if he wants to get into the top 4, he's going to probably need at best the first round finish. He's going to need those 6 points, or hope that he can get a second round finish, get those 5 points, get himself on 4 points, and hopefully those above him and around him at that point don't get any victories. He fights quite early on the card. He's only a second lightweight fighting. There's only Aliyev and Radzhabov, who is coming in late for this season, for this fight, of course. So Aliyev, if he gets the victory tonight, probably books his spot in the top 4. So it gives Aubin-Mercier a bit of a ground and the foundation to work from. But obviously the game plan and the aim for himself tonight is to get a first round finish and put himself in the mix to get through into that top 4. But yes, a fantastic night, of course, and I'm looking forward to it. We've got a busy week this weekend. Of course, we've got PFL tonight. We've got ONE FC happening this week. We've got Bellator 260, and of course we've got UFC 263, where obviously you've got Adesanya, Marvin Vettori 2, you've got Figueiredo Moreno 2, and obviously Nate Diaz is returning against Leon Edwards. So tonight's kicking off an absolute bumper weekend of the MMA as we pick it up in June. We've got absolutely stacked Cage Warriors is happening in 2 weeks from tonight, of course, with the trilogy, the third trilogy, of course. It actually might be the fourth trilogy, sorry. But yes, tonight PFL 4 takes place. Claressa Shields making an MMA debut, Brendan Loughnane repping the UK, and hopefully finishing top of the group stage, I guess you could call it, tonight against Tyler Diamond. So make sure to hit the subscribe button, make sure to follow us on social medias at CageChat MMA, on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook, of course, and I will see you guys on the next video.